Good to have you back. This is Environmental Intelligence, episode 22 for April 9th, 2026. Your daily briefing on environmental, regulatory, science, and compliance developments that matter for Canadian professionals. A Piikani Nation member has vowed legal action against governments and Evolve Power for alleged violations of his treaty right to harvest fish. The claim directly engages Alberta EPEA approvals, Federal Fisheries Act prohibitions on harmful alteration of fish habitat, and Potential Species at Risk Act considerations at a contaminated water body. This enforcement-adjacent court challenge highlights ongoing gaps in selenium management at mining-impacted sites. Practitioners with mining, power, or linear infrastructure projects near Indigenous territories should review consultation records and water quality triggers this week. A Piikani Nation member has publicly stated intent to sue governments and Evolve Power. The allegations center on selenium contamination in Crowsnest Lake and violations of his constitutional right to harvest fish. The claim engages Alberta EPEA approvals, Federal Fisheries Act prohibitions on harmful alteration of fish habitat, and Potential Species at Risk Act listings for affected aquatic species. Previously, selenium management at such sites relied on site-specific risk assessments and CCME water quality guidelines. This litigation tests whether current authorizations adequately protect Aboriginal rights. For consultants and councils supporting mining or power proponents in Western Canada, this raises immediate questions about adequacy of monitoring data, downstream loading calculations, and duty to consult documentation. Regulators will likely scrutinize existing permits for adaptive management triggers. Next steps include tracking statement of claim filing and any parallel federal or provincial investigation. What this signals is that selenium is moving from a technical water quality parameter to a constitutional rights issue in the Alberta-British Columbia border region. In practice, this means your existing EPEA authorization defenses may need stronger evidence on loading attenuation and fish tissue thresholds. An ISIS supporter who entered Canada on a study permit has pleaded guilty in U.S. federal court to terrorism charges. The case involves a planned mass shooting at a Jewish center in New York. While not a direct environmental prosecution, it underscores enhanced interagency screening of foreign nationals. That screening can intersect with environmental project permitting involving security clearances or critical infrastructure under the Impact Assessment Act. Canadian environmental professionals supporting projects with Federal Impact Assessment Act or CEPA Schedule 1 substance considerations should note any ripple effects on client security screening timelines. U.S. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin has repealed the endangerment finding that underpinned federal greenhouse gas regulations. The announcement was made at a Heartland Institute conference of climate skeptics. This removes the statutory foundation for U.S. EPA authority over carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act. Canadian practitioners managing cross-border contaminated sites, oil sands, or pipeline projects should anticipate potential divergence in North American carbon markets. They should also monitor whether this accelerates pressure to adjust Canada's federal carbon pricing backstop or provincial equivalency agreements under CEPA. Nature Climate Change reports that high-resolution remote sensing now shows small non-forested wetlands contribute 24% of global wetland methane emissions. These emissions are increasing. The finding tightens uncertainty bounds in national inventories relied upon for Canadian provincial and federal climate reporting. Practitioners conducting wetland delineations or greenhouse gas baseline assessments for Impact Assessment Act projects or provincial reclamation certificates should incorporate updated remote sensing methods. This is particularly relevant when calculating fugitive methane fluxes in peatland-rich regions of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Billions of tons of carbon dioxide are booked as removed or avoided in corporate and national net zero plans. This occurs despite fundamental measurement uncertainties that will not be resolved for years. The analysis directly affects credibility of offset credits used in Canadian compliance markets under provincial output-based pricing systems and federal output-based pricing system. Contaminated sites and remediation teams integrating nature-based solutions or monitored natural attenuation into net zero claims should apply higher discount rates. They should also demand third-party verification protocols aligned with ISO 14064 to reduce future regulatory challenge risk. Everwind is fast-tracking development of a multi-gigawatt renewable energy portfolio in Atlantic Canada. The scale triggers Federal Impact Assessment Act screening and provincial environmental assessment processes in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador. It also brings associated requirements for fish habitat offsetting under the Fisheries Act. Environmental consultants supporting renewable proponents should prioritize early baseline data collection for migratory birds, bats, and marine species to de-risk permitting schedules. The federal government has committed $28.9 million to clean energy initiatives across multiple provinces. Funding will accelerate compliance planning for facilities seeking equivalency under CEPA or provincial climate regulations. Laboratory and consulting teams should update quality assurance and quality control protocols now to align with expected increases in renewable project environmental monitoring contracts. If you are working on any Alberta or British Columbia mine or power project near Crowsnest Lake or similar headwaters, review existing selenium monitoring data and adaptive management plans immediately. Update your Indigenous engagement templates to explicitly reference Fisheries Act subsection 35, subsection 2, harmful alteration triggers and post-spill notification timelines. Cross-check current client net zero accounting for offset credits against measurement uncertainty thresholds highlighted in recent analyses. Confirmed laboratory contracts include ISO 17025 accredited methods capable of low-level selenium and naphthenic acid reporting for upcoming spring freshet monitoring. April 15th, Federal Carbon Pricing Adjustment Review comment period expected to open. Monitor Environment and Climate Change Canada Registry for Provincial Equivalency Implications. April 22nd, Earth Day, when several provinces traditionally release updated contaminated sites guidance or enforcement summaries. April 30th, British Columbia CSR Schedule 2 annual performance reporting deadline for applicable contaminated sites. May 8th, CCME anticipated release window for revised soil vapor intrusion guidance, with final comment period likely following immediately. Now, speaking of selenium, fish habitat, and post-spill Indigenous engagement, there is a nuance here worth understanding before your next midnight call. You respond to a pipeline rupture on a tributary of the Fraser or Athabasca. Initial spill volume estimates are uncertain, free product is migrating toward fish-bearing waters, and the nearest downstream Indigenous community is 18 kilometers away but holds proven Aboriginal rights to the fishery. Under the Fisheries Act and the 2024 CEPA amendments, you must notify the federal duty officer immediately. The real test, however, is whether your engagement log demonstrates substantive rights-based consultation rather than checkbox notification. Experienced practitioners map downstream rights holders using both the Aboriginal and Treaty Rights Information System and community-specific consultation protocols before the first sample is collected. Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982 and the Impact Assessment Act's early planning phase treat late engagement as irreversible prejudice. The nuance most early career consultants miss is that selenium, naphthenic acids, or diluted bitumen constituents trigger different cultural use thresholds than generic CCME guidelines. Communities often hold site-specific fish consumption data that must be integrated into the risk assessment before remedial options are ranked. The most common mistake is treating the spill notification as a one-time phone call to the 1-800 line followed by "we will send the report later." The fix is to activate your pre-negotiated communication protocol with each rights-holding nation within 24 hours. Share raw analytical results, including quality assurance and quality control packages, in the format they request. Document precisely how their input altered the remediation approach. That single practice separates files that close cleanly from files that trigger protracted Section 35 litigation. Before we wrap, watch for developments on the Federal Carbon Pricing Adjustment Review that opens next week. That's environmental intelligence for today. If this briefing is useful to your practice, share it with a colleague and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're back tomorrow. Have a productive day. This podcast is curated by Patrick, but generated using AI voice synthesis of my voice using ElevenLabs. The primary reason to do this is I unfortunately don't have the time to be consistent with generating all the content and wanted to focus on creating consistent and regular episodes for all the themes that I enjoy, and I hope others do as well.